How are you? With Marcello. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. A lot of interesting news this week. First, we have Binance being cut off from the SWIFT system, meaning they're not going to be allowed to send dollars anymore. We also have the deaths. Government personnel are sounding the alarm on deaths that are much higher than the norm in places like Britain and Australia. And we also have, we're going to talk about Elon Musk's next billion-dollar business. Let's get started. So not the best view. I had to improvise here a little bit. I'm traveling right now, but hopefully we'll do our best. I apologize if the sound isn't that good as well, if you guys are listening on the podcast. Overall for the week, the overarching kind of story is the fact that the Fed in the United States, the central bank, a lot of people are expecting now that they're not going to raise the interest rates as aggressively as they did before. So now everybody's expecting, for example, a 25-point interest rate hike, 0.25 instead of 0.75. This is extremely, what's the word in English? Extremely important, it affects you and I quite a bit due to the fact that since we live in this over-financialized economy, any little change in these interest rates affect absolutely everything, including, for example, the potential collapse of the dollar, because our finances in the United States isn't doing well at all. Right now, we're paying about 25% just in our budget, right, is interest. So I'm going to get to that and give you the details of that in just a second. So there's a lot of optimism that now, since the Fed isn't going to be raising interest rates as much, the economy is potentially going to do better, because obviously the higher they raise the interest rates, the harder it is to buy a house, the harder it is to buy a car, the harder it is for people to go out and buy things, because the debt that they're servicing is a lot more expensive the higher that interest rates go up. Remember that in 2007 and 2008, we began this kind of financial economy where everything relied on interest rates. And this was due to the fact that we had such a serious problem. We were supposedly days away from the financial system collapsing, that all of the governments around the world dropped the interest rates to spur, the movement in the economy again. And the reason why that works is because the majority of the economy, not only in the US, but most advanced economies around the world, is consumer spending. So if they lower the cost to buy something, you can buy more stocks, you can buy more cars, you can buy more houses, it's easier for you to service the debt, putting stuff on your credit card. And this is why the interest rate is so important when it comes to literally you and my daily life. Markets are expecting a 25% increase, as I mentioned to you guys before. Even though the inflation rate in the United States has gone down for the last 6 months consecutively, the food prices have gone up, according to what the government reports, 10.4%. I don't know if you guys remember in a previous video, I'm here in the US right now. I went to Five Guys. I normally have a few stops when I get here, right? First stop is Chipotle, then Five Guys, Shake Shack. I have like my favorites. That's one of the things I miss about living overseas. But anyway, so I went to Five Guys. We used to eat during the pandemic, 2020. Two of us, 2 hamburgers, 2 drinks, 2 fries, $20, max $24. Now, when I go to Five Guys to get a hamburger, it's $20 just for me. That literally is a 50% increase in the cost of food. But the government is only telling us that the actual inflation rate is 6 or 7%. And everything across the board has gone up. Right now, we have the same situation with things like eggs. Orange juice is next. I'm going to go ahead and explain that to you as well. So keep that in mind. If you guys haven't learned how to day trade, I would recommend it, or get your side hustle going, because what's going to come next is going to be worse. And this has to do with the potential collapse of the dollar and people using the dollar less. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. Overall markets in the US and Canada, mostly positive. Markets in the Eurozone also are mostly positive, with Italy being the most positive of all. A lot of people now are excited because they're expecting that Europe isn't going to fall in that steep recession that they were thinking about that they were going to fall in. Latin American markets, mostly positive as well. Africa and the Middle East, those are higher as well. South Africa, or excuse me, Egypt was the biggest market there during the week. And then in the far, far east, we have the Kospi in South Korea being 3.7% positive most of all. Bitcoin and crypto news, you're going to have to give me a moment. I'm just looking for all those people that said that Bitcoin couldn't be regulated because I can't seem to find them anymore. You guys remember that I told you, be careful with Bitcoin. It's not that you can't make money with it. It's just that I just don't think that the powers that be are going to let go of control of the financial system. There's news this week now that Binance is being cut off from the SWIFT system. If you don't know what the SWIFT system is, it's literally the system that the entire world uses to send payments cross borders. So now Binance is not going to be permitted to make any payments in US dollars below $100,000. And it always seems to be that way, right? Whenever...
Hola, buen día. Primero que nada, gracias por estar viendo este video, por tu tiempo, esta video presentación. Mi nombre es Isaac Badillo, asesor financiero con 10 años de carrera bancaria. Actualmente me especializo en el área de divisas, tipo de cambio, ofreciendo lo que son estrategias, herramientas y servicios para optimizar esos ejercicios, esas operaciones. ¿Cómo? Con posturas, órdenes en mercado, un sistema que se queda trabajando 5 días de la semana, los 24 horas que el mercado está activo. Análisis técnico, básicamente la verificación de gráfico para sacar tendencias, soportes y resistencias, ver probabilidades y pronósticos. Y administración de riesgos para administrar lo que es a un lapso de tiempo, proteger la tesorería de la empresa por la volatilidad de precios. Mi nombre es Isaac Badillo, gracias por mirar este video. Saludos.
They make the rules, they make it for you and I that have less capital, not the big boys that have billions and billions. So now the institutions can still pull out, $500,000 in Bitcoin and convert into dollars. But you and I, our $500, our $50,000, that's not allowed. So be careful. The only shitcoin, excuse my French, that I recommend is Shiba. I gotta update that video. Hopefully they put it in there, the little meme. Shiba Inu. There was an Ethereum whale that put in over a 500 million Ethereum whale bought 18.8 trillion Shiba. So that's the only, garbage coin that I recommend in the crypto space. And Bitcoin this week up 0.24%, just under 23,000. Seems like we got a little bit of a higher trend going. Remember that I mentioned to you guys, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, Bitcoin has crossed the 200 moving average, which in technical analysis speak on charts, that's theoretically when we should start seeing an uptrend. However, it might be what's called a buyer squeeze, where they pound the market to the upside to get out all the buyers and then slam it back down again. So we'll see what happens next. In commodities, UAE and India are discussing settling non-oil trade in rupees. It's like the nails of the collapse of the dollar are literally just coming faster and faster and faster and faster. If you guys remember last week, I talked about how Saudi Arabia now at Davos at the World Economic Forum was talking about how they might start accepting payment for oil in euros or even the real, which is their currency. This is big news because the reason why we live the lavish lifestyles that we live in the United States is because we have the benefit of owning the reserve currency of the world. So we can literally do whatever we want practically, and there's no consequences because everybody needs our money, right? That's literally kind of in a nutshell. And so if you guys don't remember, and I'll kind of repeat this because some of you guys did enjoy this. In 1945, there was an agreement with Saudi Arabia and the United States, which not forced, but I would say made everybody buy oil in dollars. This created what's called the petrodollar system. And the petrodollar system is the reason why we are the sole surviving empire in the world. This, unfortunately, is starting to change very drastically because since it was just customary to use dollars for everything, if Brazil needed to pay China for something or Brazil needed to pay Germany for something, instead of paying